What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today we're looking at some deck lists from Japan, from local events and from mid-sized tournaments posted on hohonews.com and PokeCard Labs. We'll be looking at some decks featuring these cards you see on screen and more. These are what I would call a little bit more on the rogue side. They aren't the highest meta decks right now over there in Japan, but they're interesting decks that I wanted to share with you guys that are seeing some sort of play and some sort of success. And I think Creatures has been doing a pretty good job of creating a lot of cards that are playable and viable, even if they aren't the top tier. Not everything can be top tier, that's just how it works. But I think there are a lot of cards that are competitively viable and fun and interesting to build around. So I think we're getting more of that with the next set, and it keeps coming, so that's good. And I'm excited to see what other rogue decks will even have that Japan hasn't made yet. But before we get into that, shout out to my sponsors, PotownStore.com, the best place to get PTCGO codes. Make sure to use code CELIO for 5% off. Also use code CELIO for 5% off at CardTrooperGames.com, where you can pre-order physical Pokemon TCG product. Check out Beast Coast Pokemon, the YouTube channel featuring myself, Aaron Cybertron Zhang, and more great Pokemon creators, where we make videos not only on the TCG and the VGC, but even on just fun trivia and Pokemon Unite and stuff like that. PokemonCard.io, where I share standard deck lists, and you can share standard deck lists and see the community's deck lists. It's a really good deck builder and deck sharing website. And lastly, Dragon Shield sleeves, the best sleeves around, and you can use my affiliate link in the description down below when you're purchasing sleeves from Dragon Shield to support my channel. Now let's get into some of these rogue decks from Japan. First, we're going to be looking at this Digong Swim Together Finneon deck. So the first thing we need to know about for this deck, because this looks like not very much is going on here, we need to know what Finneon does. So Finneon, or not Swim Together, Carefree Swim. I thought it was translated to Swim Together. Maybe I'm thinking of something else, but Finneon, just a little basic Pokemon. Look at it, just a little fish. Ability, Ocean's Voyage. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a water energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon that has the Carefree Swim attack. What does Digong have? It has Carefree Swim. Now, this attack is not good, but it has that attack, which means we can accelerate as much energy as we want because of Finneon. And then the main attack of the deck will be Ice Return. Return any number of water energy attached to your Pokemon in play to your deck. And then this attack does 40 for each card you shuffled in, then shuffle your deck. So, this deck is just playing Digong as the attacker and then Bibarel as the draw engine. And so then you could just Capacious Bucket for water energies, attach them, play Professor's Research, or play Bruno, get more water energies, attach them. You can activate the Finneon thing as much as you like during your turn, empty your hand a little bit more with Quick Ball, with Ultra Ball, and then use Bibarel to draw more cards. So a nice little deck that's kind of similar to Malamar, Rapid Strike Malamar. But I definitely think the power level's lower than it is for Rapid Strike Malamar, but we'll have to see. It's a cute little deck, though. Next is this Lost Zone Toolbox kind of deck. I'm not even sure if I would call it a Toolbox. I guess so. I don't know. It really reminds me of the Diamond and Pearl era SP Toolboxes that didn't use Dialga G level X or Palkia G level X. Kind of in the same way that this isn't using Giratina Vstar. So it's using 4 of the Cramorants. So let's just bring up these Cramorants real quick for you. They can attack for free if you have at least 4 cards in the Lost Zone. So it can do Goofy Spit for 110 for free, starting on turn 1. That's pretty great. So if you're doing that with a Choice Belt for 140, over the course of 2 turns, your Cramorant is knocking out all V-Stars in 2 shots for free, essentially, if you have those 4 cards in the Lost Zone. And then the other attackers are going to be the Sableye. So let's pull that up. The new Sableye that says this attack can only be used if there are 10 or more cards in your Lost Zone. You put 12 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. This is a stupid good card, I think. So your early game is swinging with Cramorants, and then you can clean up Pokemon with Sableye attack, and then you also have Radiant Charizard to do 250 for just 1 energy, or maybe 2 energy, depending on how many prize cards your opponent has taken. And then there's also the new Drapion V that has the wild style that will essentially allow it to attack for free against Mew VMAX decks. And so that's your Mew VMAX counter in this deck. So this deck is very cool. Some of the other new cards in it: Lost Sweeper, send a card from your hand to the Lost Zone and discard a tool or stadium in play. And then there are 4 of the new Calirix in this deck. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck and put 3 of them into your hand, put the remaining into the Lost Zone. And also Comfey being kind of the main engine of this deck. Once a turn, if this is in the active, look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put 1 of them into your Lost Zone and put the other into your hand. So yeah, playing 2 Manaphy, I guess, because this deck would really not enjoy getting like Rapid Float or anything. I'm not sure if 2 Manaphy is necessary, but I think this is a cute little toolbox deck. It really reminds me of like the SP Sableye Haunch Crow deck back from 09. This has potential. I really enjoy seeing decks like this. Next, we have Hissuian Gudra Vstar. Playing that 3-4 line, 3 of the V and 4 of the Vstar. It looks like reminiscent of the way the Duraludon Arceus decks are built currently, or have been built for a little while. And that's because they're going to want to start with Comfey or Radiant Greninja or the Cramorant in the active, I would think. But let's start out with Hissuian Gudra Vstar. So Hissuian Gudra Vstar has 270 HP. It has the Vstar ability Moist Star. Remove all damage counters from this Pokemon. So once a game, you can just fully heal Hissuian Gudra Vstar. And its attack for water, metal, colorless does 200, and during your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 80 less damage from attacks. Now that's pretty good. So let's think, if Arceus is dealing 200 a turn, now it's dealing 120 a turn. If Palkia is dealing 240 a turn, now it's dealing 160 a turn. Still two-shotting Hissuian Gudra Vstar in this case, but maybe it also means you can then heal it, or maybe even heal it with something else that's smaller, like Hyper Potion, Crystal Cave, and try to get the most value out of tanking with this Pokemon before popping that Moist Star ability. But there are going to be other ways to prevent even more damage for Hissuian Gudra Vstar, and that's this Fantina supporter. You can only use it if there's 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone, but this is going to be a Lost Zone heavy deck, as you'll come to see. So Fantina is a supporter that says, during your opponent's next turn, all of your Pokemon take 120 less damage from opponent's Pokemon V's attacks. So if you can use this Fantina and attack with Iron Roll, this Hissuian Gudra Vstar will take 200 less damage next turn. I think that sounds amazing. So this deck is going to run off of that Comfey we just talked about, but the Comfey and the Calirixes, they're going to try to be getting cards into the Lost Zone because of the new card that allows you to accelerate all of these energies. It's not called Silver Mirror. What? Oh. It's called Mirage Gate. I guess Mirage kind of sounds like mirror. I started typing in mirror and I was like, this is not the card. It's Mirage Gate. You can only use this item if you have 7 or more cards in your Lost Zone, but you get to search your deck for up to 2 energy cards of different types and attach them to your Pokemon in any way. This is absolutely correct, okay? This is very, very good. So you get to get your metal and your water energies from the deck directly on the Hissuian Gudra Vstar, and you start Gudraing it up. This is a really cool deck. I'm excited to see how this pans out because this is my kind of deck. There's 2 things I love in the Pokemon trading card game, and it's spreading damage around with things like that Sableye we just looked at, and it's tanking a lot of damage and healing and just keeping that going. That's why I've loved Arceus and Teleon so much, but this Hissuian Gudra Vstar might do it in maybe even a better way. If not better, it's certainly different. So I'm excited for this one. Next, we have Hissuian Arcanine. Hissuian Arcanine with that free attack, and it's also using the new Radiant Venusaur from Pokemon Go. Now that Radiant Venusaur, let's just take a moment to remember what it does. It allows you to draw until you have 4 cards in your hand, but it does that after you attack. Why is that so important here? Well, it's because of Hissuian Arcanine's Guard Down attack, which is free. It does 10 damage, but if you have no cards in your hand, this attack does 150 more. So you have a 0 card hand and you do 160 damage. And from that 160 damage, you're either drawing 0, 1, 2, or 3 prize cards. If you drew 0 prize cards after attacking, because you're two-shotting something, then that Radiant Venusaur allows you to draw from 0 to 4, giving you +4 cards in your hand. Now, if you did take prizes, the Venusaur is only going to work for a draw 1, 2, or 3, depending on how many prizes you've taken from this attack, because that's how the ordering works. You have to take your prize cards, that's part of the attack, and then you use this ability. But I still think it's really good. So let's look at the rest of the Hissuian Arcanine deck using that Zoroark with the transforming ability that allows it to become a stage 1 from the discard. So it could become an Arcanine, it could become the Flapple or Appleton, I'm sorry, just the Appleton there, and then also the Electrode, which can be used to one-shot a Palkia Vstar, although it also one-shots itself. Mightyena as a Mew VMAX counter, Altaria, just because it's good to be able to put a supporter on top of your deck and then grab it with Radiant Venusaur for next turn or Primate Wisdom, and also the Slowbro from Pokemon Go, which we should take a quick look at that, because I'm not sure if I've talked about it in recent videos. But it has the attack Twilight Inspiration. You can use this attack only if your opponent has exactly 1 prize card remaining, and you take 2 prize cards. So if you could just take 4 prize cards with Hissuian Arcanine and friends, Slowbro will do the rest for you. So I think this deck has real potential, and Radiant Venusaur is so cool that I hope it does work out. Lastly, we have Shadow Rider Calirix VMAX here with Deoxys Vstar. So the new cards in this deck are going to be Thornton, which is essentially like a Ninja Boy. We'll just look at that real quick here. Oh, there's no N. Thornton. It's not Thornton. Choose a basic from your discard pile and switch it with one of your basic Pokemon in play. Discard the other Pokemon. So it's kind of like a Ninja Boy style card. And then we have Radiant Gardevoir in this deck as well. Your Pokemon take 20 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon V's attacks. So that makes your Pokemon a little bit tankier, but that does make me wonder, if Radiant Gardevoir is in here, why is Deoxys VMAX not in here? Deoxys VMAX says your Pokemon take 30 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon Vstar. That should certainly be in this deck, and when I'm talking about this deck, I'm just going to imagine that Deoxys VMAX is in here, because it just makes so much sense. If you're going to play all these cards, it doesn't hurt to toss in that 1 extra Deoxys VMAX that's going to help you out, So Shadow Rider Calirix VMAX obviously can flood the board with energy, draw you a bunch of cards. That has not been strong enough in our current format, because we also have Dark Pokemon knocking it out for 3 prizes that are also there to counter Mew VMAX. And we have decks that are also just as strong as this, but don't need to have 8, 9, 10 energy on the board for those one-hit knockouts. Things like Palkia can do it just because your opponent has a large bench, and Arceus wins the wars of attrition, and Mew VMAX is the one-shot machine. So Shadow Calirix VMAX has fallen out, but we have the new Deoxys Vstar, 270 HP. Now this is going to be a 2-prize Pokemon out there, which is a lot less of a liability, and it does Psycho Javelin, 190, and 60 to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon V, and then Star Force, 60 damage for each energy attached to both active Pokemon. So I kind of see Star Force as almost like an Alchemy VMAX, but I'm not sure it's better than Alchemy VMAX, because Alchemy VMAX is a different weakness, and it also can use the attack multiple times, and it doesn't rely, it doesn't also rely on your opponent's Pokemon having any energy on it. But I imagine, or I guess I should say, if you're going to pile all that energy onto Alchemy, then a lot of times you'll have to pile 1 or 2 less, or maybe 3 less onto the Deoxys for the same knockout, because it also takes into account your opponent's active Pokemon's energy. So the V-Star attack on Deoxys does have synergy with Shadow Rider Calirix VMAX, but not so much the Psycho Javelin attack. I think Deoxys VMAX should be in the deck, though, like I mentioned. and it also has its own attack. It can tank a little bit because it heals 30 after taking 30 less, and then the Radiant Gardevoir, so I think that's a good idea too. So I don't like the construction of this deck necessarily, but I like where it's going, and that's going to be everything for today's video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for daily Pokemon TCG content, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.